Deva,
Hi, a very good evening to all of you. So today we are going to study the subject Advanced Social Psychology in Block 2. Unit 2 we are going to study. In Unit 2 we are going to see what is pro-social behavior and what are the factors that are contributing to pro-social behavior. Okay, the first slide actually I prepared the full index of Unit 2. So I thought this will be a easy reference for all of us. Okay, so in this Unit 2, it is covering introduction, objectives, and there are some few definitions also we can see. So what is pro-social behavior and what is altruism? And then what are the historical aspects? There are two aspects mentioned in the textbook that we'll see in that topic. And what is the behavior in emergency situation? There are some 5 emergency situation aspect response it is given. So we'll see what is that. And there are some 12 points given for the factors which are affecting the pro-social behavior. So we also going to see 4 theories as per the textbook: social learning, motivational, social identity, and biological perspective. And it also talks about what is a negative state relief hypothesis. And we are going to touch upon empathy altruism hypothesis. Under that, there are 2 points are given. Then this unit talks about reciprocity and social norms. What is the current trend? And there is a sum up, and there are some 3 unit end questions. So this is the entire unit 2, one single slide I have given. Anyway, this unit is very much too much of text and theory. I tried to cover everything in 4 slides. So we'll just see what is next. Okay. So you are able to see my screen?
yes.
Yes.
Okay. So we'll see what are the 2, 3 definitions. Basically, what do you mean by pro-social behavior? So it is an voluntary behavior intended to benefit another person. And it includes helping, sharing, giving, and confronting. And another definition, it says any act that is performed with the goal of benefiting another person. So what are the examples for pro-social behavior? So one is volunteering, and then it also includes sharing your toy or sharing your food with your friends, and instrumental help. So what do you mean by instrumental help? Helping a peer or colleague with some school assignments. So it is called instrumental help. And there is some costly help. So that means risking your own life just to save and help others. And emotional supporting, who are in maybe fall sick, who are in the distress also. So all these are the examples for pro-social behavior. Next, we'll see what is altruism. So altruism is basically, it is a voluntary behavior as we saw in the pro-social definition, but altruism is a pro-social behavior without any expectation of reward. That is called altruism. And the first person who utilized the term altruism is a French sociologist, Augustine, who declared, by nature, humans have born drives to behave sympathetically towards others. So, in other words, altruism refers to a kind of selfless help, which is based on pure desire to help others. So pro-social behavior, we'll see the differentiation. So pro-social behavior is a voluntary act, but it may include some of your self-benefit also. But altruism doesn't involve any self-interest. I can give an example here. If you are donating to a tsunami fund, okay. So is it a pro-social? Is it a altruism? Any guess? You are giving a donation to tsunami fund.
It's being pro-social, right?
Pro-social,
Sorry?
yeah.
Yes, it is a pro-social behavior, but it is not called altruism because there is a factor of tax exemption also included. So that could be a basic reason behind it. So this will not come under altruism. So any voluntary act which doesn't have any expectation of reward only is called altruism. So fund charity to the or your donation to tsunami fund will not come under altruism. Clear? Now next, we'll see certain historical aspects that is given in the textbook. So the term pre-social behavior first introduced in 1970s based on one incidence of Kitty Genovese. So this is a lady who got murdered in front of her home. So what happened in this incident? So Kitty was parking her vehicle in front of her house. Actually, she was parking her car just a few feet away from her apartment, when all of a sudden a man named Winston Mosley chased her down and snapped her in the back twice. Kitty actually screamed for help, and a neighbor responded shouting to the criminal, "Let that girl alone." So immediately Winston ran and left the girl there, but she murdered the girl. So several witnesses reported. Actually, there were 38 neighbors who are witness for this incident, but nobody came to help this lady. So why this happened? So here they are talking about the bystander effect. So what do you mean by bystander effect? Bystander means basically a person who is present in that incident or an event, but does not taking a part. Okay, that is called bystander effect. So when there are too many people watching an incident, so the natural tendency for you will be, okay, someone else will help, correct? You will not come forward. So that is the one incident mentioned in the textbook. Then we'll see another experiment. So another experiment is basically, so there are set of participants who are filling out the questionnaires by some experimenters. So here what happens, there are some 3 conditions they have given. One second. Okay, so first one is you are alone in the room. The participant who was filling the questionnaire is alone in the room. And another incident is the same participant is put in the room along with other 2 participants. So here what happens? When they're filling out the questionnaire, suddenly smoke began to fill the room. So when the participant is alone, 75% reported to the smoke to the experimenters, wherein total contrast, only 38% of the participants in the room who are with other 2 people reported the smoke to the experimenter. So here it clearly says when you are alone, you tend to help more than when you are in a crowd. So your social behavior exhibits more when you are alone or when you are in a very few people. Okay, now next topic is prosocial behavior in emergency situation. There are 5-step response in emergency situation. First one is noticing the emergency. So first, you should notice there is an emergency. Then only you can help. If you are in hurry, so there are a lot of chances you prevent to notice. Okay, someone is in trouble, you may not notice. Correct? So first you should notice the emergency. Point number 2, interpreting an emergency as an emergency. So here, as a bystander, so here the Kitty case is as an evidence. For example, when you are in a group of people and you will see the other people reactions. So when other people are not taking it very seriously, then you also don't feel there is an emergency, it needs my help and all. Okay, so that is interpreting the emergency. Next is assuming that is your responsibility to help. Okay, so someone has to take the responsibility. When there are too many witnesses, there is a diffusion. Diffusion means you're spreading more widely, right? Widely, the note saying, okay, the phenomenon whereby each bystander's sense of responsibility to help, it will decrease automatically when there are more observers in the incident. You don't take responsibility to help, knowing what to do. So that's a 4th point. Okay, now you want to help, but you should know what kind of help is needed. For example, there is an accident happens, so you should at least know some basic first aid. Otherwise, even if you want to help, you may not be able to help. Correct? Now next point is making the decision to help finally. Okay, now all the 4 conditions are met. You want to help and you know what to do, how to help and all that, but still there is a hesitance because you might feel unqualified to help, or you much are too much of afraid of the cost to yourself. So you will not go on help. So these are the 5-step response in an emergency situation. Next, we'll see the fact, what are the factors that are affecting helping behavior. So in the text, there are 12 points are given. We'll just touch upon one by one. First is physical attractiveness. Basically, what is attractiveness means? The attractiveness may be come from physical or from someone's personality or someone's behavior. You will like that person. So your helping tendency will increase to an attractive person than an unattractive people. Point number 2, similarity and kinship. Similarity and kinship, basically, individuals are more likely to behave pro-socially towards similar or who are likable, who are similar. If they also have similar, any kind of similarity, you will tend to help. So, especially, for example, uh, pro-social behavior towards family members. Probably it involves a sense of duty, but still, okay. So kinshipness is basically, it's a blood relationship. So based on that similarity and the kinship, you will tend to help that incidents. Religiosity. So religiosity also, several studies have examined that impact of donor characteristics across various domains. Okay. So if you have a religious based, so you will tend to help, the giving will be more. Next is victims perspectives. If you know the other side, other person's perspective, background and the reason behind, then your helping tendency, obviously you will tend to help if you know the other side. Personal experience. So personal experience, basically, I can give an example. You are watching a news, a video. It is an accident. Okay, maybe a car accident or flight accident. The person who already had a similar experience, so you also had a flight accident. So your emotions and the tendency to help, and it will have more effect on you if somebody is already experienced the same incident than who are not gone through that. For them, it is just a news. It won't affect them much. There will be no, the empathy will be very less. Identifiable victim effect. So here, to understand this better, you can take an example of, for example, some charities, if you notice, they do some marketing, okay, by showing their victims, correct? Take an orphanage or old age. So they keep on showing the advertisement with the people who are in that trust, okay, who are in that orphanage. So when you know whom you are going to help, then your pro-social behavior will increase. So identify victim effect. Next is you are concerning victims' responsibility. So people also give more to victims who are perceived as deserving. So very good example here is, you have two scenarios. One is a disabled child. Another side, you are seeing a healthy unemployed man. So whom you will tend to help? Obviously the vote will go to disabled children. When both are at the victims, they need help, but still the human tendency is helping for a disabled children than a healthy unemployed person. Next is positive friend influence. So people who are with friends, for example, in childhood, if you notice, children are more similar to the friends in the degree which they display pro-social behavior, motivated to behave the similar way. Wherein in when you grow up, adolescents who have friends are more likely to be more pro-social than those who without friends. Okay, so if your friend is having a positive influence and he is doing a helping tendency, obviously you also will tend to help others. Gender. Okay, so here in the studies and researchers is talking about females engage in pro-social behavior more frequently than males. Okay, and additionally, observational studies also indicates that females are more likely than male to share and cooperate when interacting with others. Next point is age. So all the studies is talking about young, when you are at childhood or younger generation, they have more helping tendency than a elder person. So there you see a decrease of the pro-social behavior when you grow older. Personality. So personality basically, sorry, I need to talk about age. Age I am done. Okay. Personality. Personality basically talk about, actually the personality doesn't have any direct relationship with your pro-social behavior. People who have scored high rating on the personality, behaviors, um, they are not much people who are likely to help. Okay, so the correlation between different kinds of helping behavior in children, and several studies have found that those who scored high on a personality test of altruism were not much more likely to help those who scored less. So the people's personality is clearly not the only determinant of helping. So rather, as it says here, it seems to be that different kinds of people are likely to help in different situations. Next point is effects of positive moods. Of course, if you feel so good, your helping tendency will increase. If your mood is not good, obviously the feeling of helping others is very less. So next we'll see what are the theoretical perspectives. There are 4 theoretical perspectives in our textbook. First one is social learning theory. Social learning theory. So here we can give an example. For example, you have some role models. The role models may be based on the love or your respect. It could be your parents or authorities. It could be anybody. So whom you have a role model, if that person is doing something, for example, there are a lot of fans, right, for actors. If they are having some blood donation camp, then obviously whether you like it or not, you also will be part of that activity for the blood donation. So next one is motivation perspective. Motivation perspective, there are altruistic pro-social behavior and differentiation from the egoistic pro-social behavior. So in altruistic social behavior, what is the motivation? The motivation is only to help others, to increase other person's welfare. But in egoistic pro-social behavior, the person is getting motivated not only to help others. There is a portion of one's own welfare or for a particular one's group where he belong to, that is also will be present there. So that is a motivation for the egoistic pro-social behavior group people. Next is social identity theory. So social identity theory, you can say it is a framework for explaining the intergroup behavior. So intergroup means, for example, it can be a sports teams or some religious teams or some nationalities group or some based on some occupations or ethnic groups or gender groups. So this affiliation with a group, okay, it confers the self-esteem which helps to sustain the social identity. So to elaborate here, people frequently engage in more pro-social behavior towards members of their own group compared to other group. If you belong to one group, then your pro-social behavior tend to increase than compared to other groups who are not in the group. So favoring the in-group when compared to out-group. So that is what the social identity theory. So people identified with a group will more likely to exhibit behavior that are consistent with the shared group norms and will cooperate with the group and its team members than the people who are not in the group. Next is biological perspective. So the pro-social and altruism, it's all comes 50% from the genes. That is what the study says. So several studies have found that by adulthood, approximately 50% of the variance in altruism, empathy, and social responsibilities is due to genes. So only 50% belong based on the non-genetical factors. So next we'll see negative state relief hypothesis. So negative state. So if you are in a very sad mood, then you see the tendency of helping others. Why? Because that may be a route for them to relieve from the sadness. So that is called negative state relief hypothesis. So what are the prominent features? They help us experience empathic concern, and such concern is accompanied by feelings of sadness. Third point is help us attempt to relieve such feelings by helping others. So when you are more sad, you will tend help more. So the example given in the book is, for example, church goers who feel who generally donate more after confession. Correct? So that is the example given in the book. Next, we'll see. So when people feel guilty, they are more likely to help. For example, that churchgoers were more likely to donate money after conversion. Next is empathy altruism hypothesis. So here we'll see the point. So people who are empathy altruism predicted, people in high empathy condition, they help people regardless of the cost. While if you are a low empathic condition, okay, so your helping tendency will reduce and you will tend to help only if the cost of helping was high. So here there are two different points in empathic altruism hypothesis. First point is empathic joy hypothesis. So what do you mean by empathy joy hypothesis? For example, as a helper, okay, as a helper, you enjoy the positive reactions shown by the other party. That means whom you are helping. So it's not only a helping tendency, you feel more joy when the other person have a positive response after taking your help. So here also they are talking about three prominent features of the empathic joy hypothesis. That is, help us experience empathic concern, and the concern is a function of their sensitivity to another needs. The awareness of relief for another distress promotes subsequent relief of the helper empathic concern as well as a sense of joy. So second point is, do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, Sundari.
Yeah, I'm just disconnecting my Bluetooth from my phone. Okay. Self-efficacy hypothesis. So here, if you see the definition, self-efficacy refers to your own belief in your own ability to control your motivation and behavior. It also refers to individuals' belief in your capacity to execute the behaviors necessity to produce specific performance attainments. So we can see one example here. For example, if a student who has a high level of self-efficacy in mathematics subject will feel more confident in their ability to do well in a tough statistics class. So that is what self-efficacy hypothesis. Okay, now we'll see reciprocity in social norms and social norms. Okay, the concept of reciprocity is defined. Individual act in a more cooperative manner in response to the positive or friendly behavior of others. So here you can take an example. Yeah, the third point it says, so for instance, though you are contributing to a charitable organization, so it does not give any benefit directly to the donor. You are giving money to a charitable trust, okay? But in the long run, she may gain benefit, and there will be some expectation that when the person donor, when she is in need of help, they may approach this charitable trust. So there is some kind of reciprocity, expectation is there. So social norms also encourage people to find ways by which to avoid being generous when it is not completely necessary. So next is current trends. Okay. Genetics also contributes to individual variation in prosociality. So research on adults finds prosociality is substantially heritable. So research on young children shows lower heritability demonstrated by twin studies showing increase the heritability of a parent rated prosocially. Okay, 30% at the age of 2 and 60% at the age of 7. So the relationship, yeah. So for example, children's low prosociality is related to parents' use of negative discipline and affection. And here they're talking about an example to help a stranger. Okay, and this also differs across cultures. So helping a stranger may different based on culture to culture. And it also suggested there are two reasons for cultural difference in altruism. First is industrial societies place a value on competition and personal success. And the second reason is cooperation at home in non-industrial societies promotes altruism. Next, we'll see. So this is basically sum up of unit 2, what we have covered so far. So we have seen what is pro-social behavior. It is basically a voluntary behavior without any other, with the intention to help others only. So pro-social behavior is often accompanied with a psychological and social rewards for its performer in the long run. So they can benefit from living in a society where pro-socially is common. So altruism. So what is altruism? We have seen the definition. So any form of voluntary act intended to favor another without expectation of reward. So in pro-social behavior, even though the basic idea is to help others, but it may include a self-interest and self-benefit, wherein there is no expectation of reward in altruism. So there are various factors that affect social behavior we have seen, and there are two reasons for cultural differences also we have seen in that. So this is a sum up, and at the end of the session they have 3 questions given. So what is the definition of pro-social behavior, and what are the factors affecting it, and various factors that affect pro-social behavior. Evaluate the theories of pro-social behavior. So we have seen 4 theories, that is the social identification theory, motivation theory, biological theory, and social learning theory. So that's it in this topic.